6:30.
Okay.
Sorry,
I'm
Bob.
going to call this meeting of the Public Works Committee to order on September 13th, 2021. We have a quorum. Sean, I believe you said Carrie was not going to be present. I don't know that is Robert on board or?
Robert is in, so we have
Robert.
all members other than Carrie, and yeah, Carrie cannot make it tonight. She
Okay.
sent me a note.
All right, well, that's fine. Then we have a quorum and we can proceed to do business. Our first item is the minutes of August 23rd, 2021.
This is Susan. Move approval.
We have a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second to that motion?
This is Robert. I would second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion with respect to the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Sean, I would appreciate it if you would record me as an abstention since I was not at that meeting, but the ayes have it and the motion carries.
All right.
Next item of business is 1705 North High Point Road deck replacement.
Yeah, and I'll scan down just a little bit here and give you a couple seconds to sort of reread that if you're not familiar with the issue. There's a homeowner that has a deck partly surrounding, I think it's the south and west sides of his house. But zoning advised him that there's some setback issue that I'm not very familiar with, except he could get around it if the next abutting property owner would agree to that by allowing to be recorded an affidavit of consent, which would be us, because the next nearest property owner is the city of Middleton with a little ribbon of unimproved right-of-way that runs between the improved part of Hillcrest Avenue and High Point Road. In fact, let me get to a couple photos would be handy. So this is a view of, I don't know if that's the south side. I think it's the west side probably. Yeah, you can kind of see this little white outline that I'm tracing. Maybe I'll zoom in a bit. You can kind of see I take it that that's a railing on a deck. This red line, our city planner, Mark Opitz, just drew in to say, well, this is the minimum dimension to the next nearest property, which is this long 16.5-foot wide strip of unimproved right-of-way. So if the city's okay with this owner replacing this deck in a really similar fashion, same height, same width, same setback, then I guess by having the city sign an affidavit of consent, everything's good again. So I'm in favor of the committee recommending to the Common Council approval of the city signing an affidavit of consent contingent upon satisfaction of the city attorney with the final form and letting them get on with it.
All right, and we had a copy of the affidavit to review as well. So
Yeah,
committee, what is your preference here?
Well, it seems pretty straightforward, and Sean, I appreciate the kind of summing it up the way you did. I would be happy to make the motion that we recommend to the Common Council the signing of this notarized affidavit, subject to the city attorney approval.
Is there a second to Robert's motion?
I'll second.
Carl, I second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion with respect to the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and that will be our recommendation to the council.
All right.
Okay,
So next on our agenda is Pleasantview Road reconstruction. This is a pretty minor issue, and I noticed the design study report had been signed by Gary Huth, but after his retirement, I took over that project. So there's a small amendment that's been recommended by WSDOT to narrow some left turn lanes so that the railroad gates on Highway 14 don't exceed a 32-foot length. That just gets to start to get too long for a railroad gate arm, apparently. So Strand's solution was fine. We'll narrow the left turn lanes there then on westbound Highway 14 that would turn onto southbound Pleasantview Road. But to do that requires filing this addendum to the design study report. And I'm happy to sign it, but I at least wanted to bring it to your attention. There's no particular action needed, but if there are any questions, I'll try to address them.
All right, thank you, Sean. Anybody have any questions with respect to this issue? Seems fairly straightforward as well. Okay, well, if no one has any questions, then I guess we can move on.
All right. So next up is a resolution for the city to declare its intent to assess costs of improvements per policy. And there are some issues because of this sort of unique nature of this road that we'll have to discuss at some point, but we're not even authorized at present to prepare an assessment resolution or get into those questions until after the city declares its intent to assess improvement costs. And I know Ginny Corwin is here, so she may have some questions about this, but in a general sense, our typical roadway assessments include removal and replacement costs of sidewalk, half the removal and replacement costs of driveway aprons. And that's part of what we'll probably need to talk about, how to determine that. And then also initial installation of curb and gutter, which thereafter is not assessed.
Well, as long as Jenny is here. Jenny, do you have any questions with respect to this? This is just kind of laying the groundwork for things.
Right. No, I appreciate that. That was really my question. Is this kind of a standard procedure that you go through at this point in a project before you actually determine the actual, I don't know, are they percentages or dollar amounts that homeowners will be obligated to pay?
Right, it's
Dollar amounts.
yeah, by policy, it's a percentage of a dollar amount, and we do make an estimate, but by the time we get to final assessment resolution that adopts a maximum payment, we use bid numbers typically. So they're
Okay.
literally actual dollar figures at that point. And then it's a maximum not to be exceeded.
Okay.
Sean, I had a quick, could we look at the resolution itself?
Sure.
Please?
Yeah, let me just pop down there.
I had
So-
one question, and I think this was it's all the way down at the bottom or near the bottom. When do you anticipate this public hearing would take place?
I don't have that yet. That's part of what Sean Alsrud and Dan Perry are trying to figure out, is how the overall final design and bidding schedule works in terms of trying to dovetail the assessment process with the design process so that we can minimize meetings, so that we're not coming to the committee every 2 weeks with something. So we don't have a date in mind.
Okay. Well,
just yet.
I just wondered is it wise to say that the hearing will be held at Middleton City Hall if in fact we're still not in a position to hold public hearings at City Hall? Does that in any way bind the council, or should we just say a public hearing should be held at a time set by the clerk?
Time and location, maybe.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I know in the past we have modified some of these. So let me check into that and see.
Okay. I just didn't want to have to come back and modify the resolution for a little
Yeah,
bit
right.
like that. But if it, as Don said, if it said, shall be held at a time and place set by the clerk.
Can I also ask one more question about point number 3? With the payment, the cash payment within 30 days of project completion and billing. So this is not something that gets added to homeowners' tax bills, is that correct?
Not automatically, no. There's a separate invoice that gets sent out after it's measured, and will generate a bill then for payment. And then if that bill goes unpaid for a period of time, then it gets put onto the tax bill.
Okay, and we won't know that amount until much later in the project, correct?
Until
Homeowners
after.
won't know that amount.
Right, till after bids are open, but we will make known to homeowners a preliminary estimated number.
Okay, that's
Even
helpful.
before bids. And then when we open the bids, we'll change it all quick before adopting it.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
All right, anyone else have any questions, comments with respect to this resolution? If not, are we prepared to move it along to the council?
This is
Yeah.
Susan. I would move approval.
This is Robert. I would second, and I think probably part of that is there may be, I thought that was a good point on number 6, that there may be some slight wording change, but that could also probably be handled at the common council level. But you might want to note that there's the possible change of wording in paragraph 6 of this resolution.
Yeah, and I think we'll change that before putting it in the council packets.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, if that can be fixed before this, then yeah, my second stands.
All right.
All right, we have a motion and we have a second. Is there any further discussion with respect to this item? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and that will be our recommendation to the council.
Okay, thank you very much. I think I'm going to sign off.
All right, thank you, Jenny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
have a
See
good
you
night.
again, I'm sure.
I'll see you again another day.
All right, so next up is a draft request for proposals for design and real estate services for the reconstruction of Parmenter Street, about 450 feet north of Century Avenue up to Greenbrier Road, which has been in our plan for some time. And we were waiting a little bit to know more about the Tribeca development, and we know enough about that at this point. So this is moving forward. We do have, I think it was $1 million of state money allocated toward this project, some of which was earmarked for design and real estate, most of which was associated with construction. And the rest of construction is coming out of TIF financing. So we have a window by which we, number one, need to use TIF money, and number two, need to complete the work for the grant funding. So we've got a little bit of time, but I was hopeful actually of getting this out in spring. Here it is fall. So you can gauge how my days have been going lately. And the big part is this is for us, a fairly significant project with a lot of little pieces involved. So I wanted to make sure the committee had a chance for some input before sending it out. I'll note too that even today, talking with other staff, I made a few extra changes. Number one, somebody noted that I didn't mention anything about design of water main. That's because we don't really need design of water main, but there's no reasonable way a reader would know that. So I now explicitly wrote in there that there's really no water main design needed. I tried pinning down a little bit better some of the real estate acquisition needs, just focused on the sort of REA and Knockreiner corner where there's only, I think, 66 feet of right of way instead of 90 feet of right of way. There was one other change that I made too that I'm drawing a blank on now, but I think parcels, water. Oh, just a note too. Someone pointed out that we've got a bunch of background information. And while we don't typically just push that all out with the RFP, I did put a note in that it's at least available if somebody wants to look at it.
Okay. Comments, committee? I thought it certainly looked like a very thorough RFP. A lot of information for prospective bidders in there. I don't know what else they would want to know.
Yeah, I don't either. And I know the turnaround's a little bit quick. We're hopeful to get it out by middle of this week, but back by middle of October. So that's 4 weeks for turnaround, which may be a little bit quick, but certainly we're available for questions. It wouldn't be the first time someone doesn't fully understand what's in my head that didn't quite make it to paper. That's the nature of the beast. So
If they want the work, they'll go after it, I assume.
I hope so. I think it'll be a good project.
Yeah. All right, committee, any additional things you think need to be in this document?
I'll add too, the way I wrote this was to rebuild Parmenter Street all the way up to Greenbrier Road using the typical cross-section that the council established last year, maybe 2 years ago now, for basically a 2-lane divided road that's convertible to 4-lane undivided road in the future if needed. Even though the part north of Springton, from Springton to Greenbrier, is fairly new, probably installed in 2006 with the Beltline project, so not very old. It doesn't mesh very well with this, 2-lane convertible to 4-lane that the council set south of Springton. And we won't have TIF funding in the future if somebody decides we also want that to be an urban cross-section instead of a rural cross-section. We won't have a funding mechanism to do it. So this does include rebuilding that whole length as a 2-lane road.
All right. You do not need any form of a motion or anything on this, Sean. You'll just proceed to send it out.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking, if there's input, I would fix it up. But if there is no suggestion for edit, that's fine too. Then I'll just send it out as is. Well, as modified today.
Right. I think it looks good. I'm sure you'll tweak it a little bit, and there will always be more to tweak that doesn't get done. So I think it's in a good position even right now.
Is this
Right.
a open RFP, Sean, or just select consultants?
Yeah, we normally send it out to a fairly short list. We normally just send it out to 3, but for this, I'm intending to expand that list, and we haven't pinned it down just yet, but I'm thinking 5 or 6 would be better.
Okay.
All right. Any additional comments, suggestions? Okay, I guess, Sean, you can proceed to send it out as edited by your comments this evening.
All right, will do.
Okay.
That brings us up to, oops, here we are, the water utility, and I noticed Dave Sarbacher has joined the meeting, so he can speak to this, but he's been working with Baker Tilly and with the city's accountant on getting stuff together to turn into the PSC to start the rate case process. So, so some things were turned in. This was turned in late July, is my recollection. And we just wanted to make it available to the committee for information of where we're at in the process and what's been submitted to date. I don't know if you had any other overview comments to make, Dave.
Nothing specific other than just a general overview of the utilities accounting and financial position, and looking back and looking forward as far as needs for future.
What do you think the timeline is for the PSC to review this and approve or do whatever they're going to do with it?
We're hoping that it would be complete by the end of the year so it can be implemented the 1st of 2022. But I believe there's quite a full agenda for the PSC to look at as far as rate cases this year. So it might be into 2022 before that would get implemented.
They certainly have a lot of numbers to look at.
Yeah.
There are certainly a lot of numbers.
Seems to me to be inordinately complicated, but
Yep.
So we're asking for, or we're going to be asking for an increase in the rate, correct?
Correct.
And is that based on the 2021 projections?
No, it's look back at the 3 previous full years and then also at our anticipated budget needs for 2021 into 2022. So it's mostly what we've already done, plus a review or a look at what we're anticipating coming up as well.
okay.
This is Robert. Dave, is there a key driver or that you would point to that is this just like interest year over year is what's causing the increase in price? Is there some particular infrastructure that we'll be paying for or have paid for that is the driver for cost increases? What help me get my mind around what causes is the biggest factor in causing the price to go up?
Just overall maintenance, and we have been aggressively replacing water main with the 5-year street program as well. So those have all been, numbers that are a little bit elevated over the last few years, and a couple of years going forward, especially Middleton Beach Road and a couple other larger projects. But we don't have any interest payments. It's all fully funded by the utility. We're not borrowing any money for any of the projects, and we'd like to keep that way. That's been kind of the directive from previous years.
Yeah, I think that's a good strategy. And do I remember correctly that in about 5 years, we will have replaced a lot of the city's older water mains and will be in I got this I don't think from this document, I think from some other document I was reading for Common Council. But is there a projection that a few years in the future we'll be in a really good position as well as far as the quality of the water mains under the ground?
Correct. There's going to be less and less replacement moving past the next 5-year, or actually about the next 3-year street improvement plan.
Okay.
So that will certainly help the next time that they look at our numbers in about 5 or 6 more years. So.
Okay, that's helpful to kind of see where we are now and where we might be going in the future. So thank you.
The number that they've come up with for right now is about a 16% overall increase. And that would be a combination of both our volume charge and our quarterly charges across all of the customer bases, commercial, industrial, residential, multifamily, public authority. So that's what they're looking through right now to see where those monies need to be allocated per those two funding sources within the utility billing.
Okay. Great, thank you.
All right, committee, any other comments, questions? If not, thank you for your input, Dave, and we're not required to take any action on this. This is information only.
Exactly.
So are we prepared to leave this issue and finish our agenda?
I'd say yes, and I'd say
Yeah.
this was a easy meeting tonight.
Turned
Thanks
into
all.
that. Yeah. Yeah, have a good night, Dave. Thanks.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, that gets us all the way to adjourn.
Anyone like the honor?
I'll
do
take it. Oh,
Okay,
okay,
go
somebody
ahead,
else.
Robert.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second, Don.
All right, motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 We stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Sean, you're planning a meeting for October 25th as well, or 27th, or whatever the date is?